Hello, my name is Witold Orłowski. I'm an economist. I'm the chief economic advisor of the PwC Poland. I meet with my guests from PwC to discuss the situation in the economy and the markets, but all the situation of the firms, what the firms should do, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities. My guest today is Jamioł, partner at PwC in Poland. Adam, please tell us what are you doing in the firm?
Hi, Vitek. Thank you for the introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Adam, and I help organizations to implement the new shared service centers and also improve and expand the existing centers. Thank you.
Very well, very well. We'll come back to this later, but we normally start with some overview of some interesting information about the economy wide point of view. A few things worth noticing. In the EU, there is a very important German-French proposal of putting together a huge investment fund to help the European economy deal with the crisis. Okay, in fact, the number, it's huge. It's $500 billion or trillion American terms of the euro, and the number itself is obviously big. But frankly speaking, the size is not the key element, because Germany alone is putting more money from the national sources than this joint EU fund. But if it happens, it's changing a lot the future functioning of the EU, because the EU doesn't have this money in the budget. The EU would have to sell the bonds signed by all the countries or all the members of the EU, and the first example of something like that was a joint debt of the EU to do something like that would greatly influence the functioning of the European Union in the future. It's a big change if it will take place. So it's an example of the situation that this crisis is not just changing the current business, but may influence very much the future. In a sense, in a contrast with that, in the US is an economy in which the government has got full freedom to spend money and is supported by the Fed that is printing the money. The Fed settled that there is a risk of at least 20–25% unemployment in the United States. We will not hesitate to print as much money as necessary to help the government spending that, and it's showing to what extent once again the world is going to be different after this crisis. The dangerous news are about the US-Chinese relations, because once again there are some pretty aggressive tweets by President Trump threatening China with some punishment for the pandemic. And the risk here is that the protectionist policies, the protectionism is actually the worst answer to the crisis. It has been tested by the world during the Great Depression during the 30s. An attempt to make the situation easier for the nations was to increase the protectionist policies. Actually, the protectionism led to the total collapse of the global trade, making the crisis much more severe than otherwise would have been. So we should be very aware of the fact that protectionism is a wrong answer, and observing what will happen in the relations in the US and China is very important. Well, and the rest of the world is obviously suffering. In Poland, we have a big increase of unemployment. Well, let's have a look at the situation of manufacturing and services. I put together a graph showing you the so-called Purchasing Managers Index. This is the index. If it's below 50, means more firms is expecting the decrease of the production in the future than the increase. Above 50, it's a positive sign. And here, as you see, services on the top, manufacturing on the bottom. First, obviously, everywhere there was a drop of this number of firms that expect the increase of the production, so the index went below 50. In the manufacturing, It's relatively moderate. Here you see the Germany, US as two big economies. Italy, as an example of economies extremely hardly hit by the crisis, but then China and India. In China, obviously, there's a different time pattern than in other countries because China had the bottom in February, March, and now it's improving. But if you look at the services, it's probably more interesting because in the services you see obviously the same pattern of the collapse of the expectation of the growth, but here you see much more dramatic changes. The service sector in some countries, obviously Italy, restaurants, tourism, it's clear why it's hard so much. But look at India. India is one of the world leaders in cross-border services, the export of services. And in India, in the services, the PMI went to the level of 7. It means nobody expects any hope, in a sense. I mean, everybody's expecting only the things to get worse and worse and worse. It leads us to an interesting question about the future of the cross-border service delivery, about the business services. Well, Adam, given that this is the area of your biggest expertise, could you tell us what is the situation in the business service sector?
Thanks, Vitek. So I would say, generally speaking, the situation is not very easy, but definitely I believe it's better than reflected in the services PMI. So of course there are some challenges in the industry, but I do see this as more kind of short-term challenges, and I think the industry will be able to recover pretty soon. So let me share the main challenges that I see here, especially over the last 2 months, that this sector has been facing. So first of all, there's direct link between the centers and the volume of work that is coming from the core business operations. So if they slow down, the centers have less volume and they cannot operate at the full capacity. So there is more cost pressure to save the business and respond to the situation. And that's why the center also having significant, let's say, people implications and facing this let's say, strategies and plan to reduce and manage the cost base as required, and especially in these industries like airlines and hospitality, this is more critical. So some centers are looking at reducing working time, reducing salaries, even some of them are cutting jobs. Of course, some of them are doing mix of this to minimize the impact on people, but unfortunately, some of them need to execute those type of strategies. What is interesting also after this 2 months of a lockdown average for this industry as for other sectors is, of course, we see some decrease in people engagement and their productivity. So I think people responded well in the first few weeks, but after this 2-month period, everyone is kind of let's say, feeling the length of this working from home situation. I think people are quite keen to look at the return to the office, and I think many companies, as we do at PwC, we are looking at the strategy to enable our employees to come back to the office. Although this is still raising questions, not everyone has a solid plan, and of course everyone, the employees and the companies, are concerned about they let's say, safety and making sure that this is organized in a thorough way. So these are the main challenges I see in the industry.
Okay, and do we see any opportunities and good news? I mean, how you see the future of this sector?
Yeah, of course, there is some good news. Fortunately, there is some good news, and I would say that while challenges are more applicable, in my view, to short and mid-term perspective, I do believe that the opportunities will be, let's say, benefiting the sector in the longer term. So the first opportunity is, I think, the way how the centers responded and implemented the business continuity plans, and they implemented new ways of working, and they continued the operations in the working from home mode. So they enable the employees to work from home very quickly, and some of the centers doing this at 100%, some of them 95%. So really at very, very significant scale. They've applied very quickly the online collaboration tools, the virtual sessions, video sessions, and remote trainings and transitions, which is quite a big change to this industry, because there was very, let's say, people oriented, and face-to-face trainings were a typical norm for this industry. What is also interesting, and I see this as a new ways of thinking, is that more focus and accelerated focus on innovation, automation, and digital transformation that is actually resulting from the crisis situation. And some processes like paper handling and basic process will be eliminated very quickly, I expect, because actually those processes were very painful during the lockdown, and handling papers, paper signatures, all of this was actually causing a lot of challenges for some of the companies, and actually forced to send the employees to the office because of that reason. Another interesting change for an opportunity for the sector is that actually the centers proven that they can work effectively even in crisis situation. They adapted and they demonstrated their flexibility, and I do believe that this will actually trigger more work to be shifted to the centers based on the decisions making at the headquarters and in the core businesses. They really saw the value that the centers can provide in tough situation like the period we are now. Another, let's say, opportunity that I see from people perspective is that it's actually, while some centers are reducing the people and employment, the people base, some centers are continuing to grow, and they are recruiting and onboarding, and this especially applies to financial services, FMCG, and pharma sectors. So of course, while some centers may be letting people go in some tough situations, other centers can pick up this talent, and this creates short opportunity for the centers, but also more importantly, opportunity for these people to be absorbed by the industry. And overall, I think the net effect will be still positive, because the growth will continue. It slowed down because some of the centers, let's say, suffered more, but overall, I think the growth will be still positive and will absorb any additional talent available on the market. And the last element is more related to the infrastructure, the last opportunity. So, of course, we are looking at the office space, and companies are revisiting the use and utilization of the office space. And of course, they will be defining and implementing new strategies to leverage the office space and combine this with working from home model. So the office space not necessarily as critical for everyone in a company. They will basically use it in a smarter way and more for collaboration and interactions. But some work will continue to be done from home on a rotation basis, I believe, and I think this will improve the cost spent for office space, and yeah, this will make it let's say more flexible for the centers.
Okay, but this reassure me, the offices will not disappear.
No, they won't disappear. The centers and as any other business will still need to have an office base, although I believe the offices will be used in a smarter way, and I do expect that the demand will reduce for new office space in next couple of years.
Well, thank you. It means that, as in many other areas, this crisis is going to be a kind of a special in a way that, because actually it's likely to accelerate some trends in the economy towards the digitalization, Industry 4.0, Services 4.0, and some sectors like the business service sector may actually benefit from, in the longer run from this crisis rather than those. So let's observe what's happening. Let's try to be innovative and more digitalized. Thank you. Adam, thank you for having joined us, and I invite you for the next meeting.
Thank you very much.